It's been less than 48 hours since Amazon named two cities as the winners of the company's H2Q contest. Arlington, Virginia, and the New York City neighborhood of Queens split the prize.
They beat out proposals from 238 cities, but backlash to the tech giant's announcement is mounting. Correspondent Ariel Hickson has the story.
The people, united, will never be defeated.
A cold welcome for Amazon from Long Island City, Queens residents as the trillion-dollar company makes New York City one of its new homes.
People are having their friends and family being pushed out because they just can't afford the skyrocketing rents.
Tuesday's announcement claimed New York City and Northern Virginia as the two main headquarters of the tech, retail, and entertainment studio giant.
It's a scam. The whole search for HQ2 was disingenuous. They weren't looking for a second headquarters. They were just looking for more office space somewhere.
Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, made it official in this statement, saying, "These two locations will allow us to attract world-class talent that will help us to continue inventing for customers for years to come." The team did a great job selecting these sites, and we look forward to becoming an even bigger part of these communities. Supporters of the move weren't surprised.
When I heard that Amazon was considering, reportedly thinking about coming here to Long Island City, I thought, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? It seems so obvious to me that New York is such an amazing hub for technology, for innovation, that I can't understand why they wouldn't want to be here.
But here on the streets of Queens, near the country's largest public housing complex, local council and working class groups are resistant to the big move.
Our main concern is that not only will Amazon coming to New York City not benefit longtime residents of New York City, but that they will actually displace a lot of residents of New York City through gentrification, rising rents, displacement of jobs.
Both Long Island City and Crystal City, Virginia are areas close to booming metropolises with a lot of potential. The move will bring in an estimated 25,000 employees and cost about $5 billion to build. But critics are wary of higher housing costs and major infrastructure problems as a result. Some have another opinion, as the move will make Amazon one of the largest tech companies on the East Coast and potentially stealing bragging rights from Silicon Valley.
We want to attract really smart people to come here to New York. We want to continue to grow the technology ecosystem, which increasingly is powering the entire business ecosystem of New York, but also of the world.
One thing all can agree on is that change in these big cities is only a click away. The company has already secured temporary space for the buildings, and hiring will begin in 2019. Ariel Hickson, I-24 News.
To discuss this, let's bring in Wallace Ford. He's a professor at Medgar Evers College. He was also one of the officials in charge of business development here in New York City. And attorney Kenneth Del Vecchio is a Republican strategist. Ken, I want to start with you because there are reports that the city is going to provide something like $2 billion worth of incentives for Amazon to come to Queens. Is that money well spent?
Yeah, it is. Look, I'm not a fan of Amazon's politics, but I am a fan of capitalism, and they have a right to lay out their company wherever they want to go. And if industry wants to sell to them, meaning other property owners want to sell to them so they can come in there, and if they work with the government in order to set up their businesses there, I not only think it's not a problem, I think it's something that so greatly benefits the community because it's going to bring billions of dollars into the local economy. It's going to bring so many jobs. It's so beneficial in so many different manners.
But Dr. Ford, I mean, $2 billion that could be spent on improving infrastructure, on the subway system, and all the sort of things that New Yorkers want to see improved.
I find myself in the bizarre position of actually agreeing with Ken, and so at least in part, but I'm sure I'll get over it. But quite seriously, you know, when I was involved directly in economic development, working for former Mayor David Dinkins in this regard, you have to play the long game in these kinds of situations. $2 billion sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But Amazon is putting in what would have said about $5 billion, but there's 25,000 2,000 jobs involved. And I was
in each
here,
location.
Yeah, and when I was in New York, I was here in New York City when General Electric headquarters left. I was here when IBM headquarters left, American Airlines. The list kind of goes on and on when big companies were being drained out of the city along with their jobs. What I find interesting is that the people who are fighting this the most, they have jobs by and large. Okay, we're talking about people who will be able to get jobs and stay employed here in the city of New York, and I just think it's a mistake to even talk about this should not happen. You can argue about infrastructure, for example, but infrastructure needs to be improved in the city of New York.
You want to play the devil's advocate?
I feel like I'm facing a 1-on-3, so I'll start with Utah. What about the people who are poor, the people who will see their rent go up, the people who don't have a chance of getting these jobs? I mean, this will hurt them.
I understand the uproar that Amazon is opening in 2 of the richest parts of the country, but at the same time, why are we expecting Amazon to not act like a company and act like an NGO?
Because we're acting like they deserve corporate welfare, Ken.
Look, I have one point of agreement with you, and I actually just thought about it while I was sitting here, is that I do have a big problem with $2 billion going to Amazon and not going to mom and pop companies, to small businesses. Small businesses are really the backbone of our society, and I'd rather see the money spent there if it's going to businesses.
Is it not trickling in?
Well, there might be a trickle-in effect, but my overriding concern is just like the bank bailouts. I had a gigantic problem with the bank bailouts and the insurance companies being bailed out because nobody was coming in to bail out small businesses. So that's an issue to me.
ATMs weren't working on that Monday morning after the Federal Reserve.
I think that was
okay. Well, that's a different issue. But here's my point, and that to Ken's point, I mean, why aren't we building helipads for some of these small businesses? It's only Jeff Bezos who gets a helipad as part of this deal in order to find the Senate.
It's not either or.
Yeah, and you can nitpick this and say, well, what the helipad? But I think that you want to talk about the job development program that's going to deal with some 25,000 individuals in the Queensboro houses there, for example, that Amazon is going to pay for. And I think that, look, I just don't understand how we can say it's a bad thing for Amazon to be. If they had relocated in Boston, if they relocated in Chicago, those of us who live in New York would not be very happy about this.
But it's $48,000 of New York taxpayer money per job.
Yes.
That's
David, they relocated
over
to
what
Queens,
period
not
of
the Hamptons.
The gentrification,
it's called an investment.
The gentrification issue, that's nonsense to me. Meaning that, you know, this is capitalism. If you have to move out of the community because the property taxes go up or go down rather, if the property values go up, that's too bad.
It's part of the game.
It is part of the game, but doesn't Amazon have a responsibility to make sure that the game is played evenly? Look, I'm not saying that this is a bad idea. I'm just saying that I think Amazon has a certain responsibility in all of this to make sure that they don't displace a lot of members of the community.
Excuse me, but so do the elected officials who are here in New York City have to find somewhere. The gentrification issue is part of the history of New York. One thing about New York City, unlike other cities, we can't expand anywhere. Okay, there's only the 5 boroughs, and that's pretty much it.
The elected officials have the responsibility of all the taxes. They have the responsibility of all the taxpayers. To David's very first point, this $2 billion being spent to help Amazon, that is a problem.
You know how much they pay for their Seattle offices? Okay, $200 million per year in Seattle.
Okay, so it would take them 20 years or 10 years, whatever it is, to reach the $2 billion that they're getting from New York.
But I don't like them getting money from the government. That's a problem. But I don't have a problem with them coming in, buying property from private landowners and putting their businesses there. And the people in the community don't like that too bad.
But I can tell you that the history of cities that are successful are those that are managed by individuals and led by individuals who are looking at the long-term picture. It looks like it's not $2 billion being written in a check given to Amazon
today. Why do they
need
$2 billion? A company that's that big? Isn't Bezos one of the 3 richest people in
China? No, he's actually the richest now.
Yeah. He's the richest, so maybe he doesn't need any incentives from New York other than the fact that it's a great city and he should come here because of its own merits.
Okay. And that's how GE left, and that's how IBM left, and that's how Exxon left. Shall I go on?
I don't think we need to put money in these big corporations.
We don't need Exxon in New York City. Ken Del Vecchio and Dr. Wallace Ford, thank you very much. 1-on-3, not bad.
David Schuster, you're outnumbered.
That's right. That's what happens sometimes.
You're still good.
Let's turn now to a mother and son in Florida who were rescued after drifting out to sea in an inflatable swan.
Emergency calls to 911. 911 captured.
Ken Del Vecchio has one of these. I know he does. I'm sorry.
He called 911. They captured the frightening ordeal. Correspondent Diane Machado has more.
It was the harrowing scene worthy of a double take.
There is a woman on an inflatable swan her and a child, and they have drifted really, really far out into the water.
A mother and son stuck 2 miles into the Gulf of Mexico on, of all things, an inflatable swan. Tara Myers says the waters appeared calm when she and her son Brendan got on the inflatable, but she soon realized they had drifted into a rip current.
It was almost immediate that I realized that we were going out much quicker and much deeper than I had thought.
I started to freak out, like maybe we'll never make it back, we're goners.
Luckily, fellow beachgoers saw they were in trouble and called 911.
Let's put it this way, the dolphins are closer to the shore than they are.
About a half hour later, a rescue team finally reached them.
Had tears of joy. They had no injuries, and we got them onto the boat without any problems.
Now, Tara says she and her son learned a valuable lesson and are incredibly grateful.
We'll never be able to repay those people for that. I don't know what would have happened if they didn't come.
And that was Diane Macedo reporting. You ever been on one of those inflatable swans? Like
Not a swan, but just a floaty.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable on it? You loved it?
I love it. It's just that if you fall asleep or, you just chill, you relax, and you can get...
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you could get swept out and you don't even sort of know it. So, but good thing, I mean, the swan was sturdy. They got some people to get them some help, and they're alive.
Yeah, she said that she cried when they came to rescue them because she didn't want her kid to know that they were. She was so scared.
Well, we're not so sure what is worse: being serenaded, being stranded in a float in the sea, or being stranded in Siberia, like in this next story. 282 passengers on an Air France flight traveling from Paris to Shanghai were left stranded in freezing Siberia for 3 days.
It happened this week after their plane was forced to make an emergency landing on Sunday, and the replacement plane that was sent to pick them up also suffered a technical issue. First, they sat on the plane for 6 hours. Then they were brought to a hotel and tried to warm up at the bar.
The temperature outside was 9 degrees, and they were not dressed for the cold. To make things worse, they were under a constant police presence as they did not have Russian visas. Finally, by this day, a third aircraft managed to pick them up. Air France says it regrets the situation and has apologized to the passengers.
You think it's
That's 3 days out of their life that they won't get back.
In Siberia, it's not only 3 days, it's not like 3 days in New York. You get stranded in New York.
Yeah,
it's 3 days in Siberia.
A little vodka will last you only so long in Siberia. I think Air France owes them a little bit more than just an apology.
I think they will get something more than that.
We have a very impressive rescue operation in Italy to tell you about, and it saved a horse. It happened at a cemetery. Visitors heard the horse whining after it fell onto its back into a narrow ditch. People called the firefighters, who managed to pull the animal out using a harness and a crane. That does not look very comfortable.
No,
but the horse was sedated, so it didn't feel very much.
Right. It took them several hours, but eventually the horse came out with no serious injuries. Then the horse walked into a bar, David. The bartender asked him, "Why don't you have a long face?" And he's like, they said me.
Very well done. Well done. They were just horsing around. No, terrible. In California, as if authorities don't have their hands full with the fires, police are now looking for a woman who appears in this surveillance video from a McDonald's restaurant in Santa Ana where she assaulted an employee.
The woman ordered her food from the drive-thru, but after she didn't receive enough ketchup with her order, she used the back door for employees only and got inside to ask for more ketchup. According to police, she was then told that she could not be inside the restaurant, and that's when she started pushing and punching the employee.
It was the woman in pink. She only left after a man who was apparently with her entered the store. Now, look, I'm pretty passionate about my hamburgers and French fries and making sure that I have enough condiments to go with them. But this is over the line.
Ketchup, not barbecue sauce. Come on.
That's right. Somebody shortchanges tall in barbecue sauce. Watch out, everybody. Nobody will be safe.
I love it. All right, that does it for this hour of Crossroads.
Stay with us on I-24 News for much more. We'll be right back after this.